AITA for kicking my stepbrother out of my wedding reception after his kid peed on the floor. I am 26, got married to my wife, F25, 2 weeks ago. We kept it simple and sweet, and held the wedding and reception at a local hotel. I have a stepbrother, Chris, M36. Chris was already an adult when my mother married his father, so we don't really have a relationship and don't know each other that well. Chris is married and they have 11 children ages between 1 and 17. I was apprehensive about even inviting Chris and his family because we never talk and he behaved really inappropriately at my sister's wedding that was a year ago, but that's another story. During the reception, everyone was on the dance floor or getting snacks and having a good time. One of Chris' kids, F3, kept asking Chris and his wife to take her to the bathroom. Chris and his wife ignored her and kept dancing. The kid started screaming at them and having a meltdown. My aunt offered to take her to the bathroom and Chris told her to ignore her and said it's a power play his kid does. Chris' daughter pulled her dress up and peed on the floor in front of everyone. Chris started yelling at his eldest, F17, to clean the piss up. She started yelling back at him and it caused a whole scene. I got so much secondhand embarrassment and without really thinking I just told Chris and his family to leave. Chris protested and said he had the situation under control, but I told him to just leave. I mopped up the pee really quickly. The atmosphere was awkward for a bit, but everyone went back to having a good time. My stepdad and my mom are really angry that I asked Chris to leave and told me I was being unreasonable. They said weddings are about family and that includes the awkward moments. I told them that it's not my fault Chris and his wife let their kid pee on the floor and that I just can't let that happen at our wedding. Chris and his wife blocked me on social media and my sister told me that they've been gossiping about me and making very passive-aggressive posts with captions like, "Our family is so crazy, some people just can't handle it." My stepdad and mom have been super cold to me lately and said I should apologize to Chris and his family, but I really don't think they're owed an apology. NTA, and based on what went down, that family sounds like they're rife with issues. There's just no possible way that each child is receiving the care and attention they deserve, and it sounds like your poor 17-year-old niece likely carries a lot of that burden. Yeah, they sound like the type that's obsessed with popping out babies, but doesn't want to raise them. NTA, I'd consider what they did to that poor child neglect, abuse. And how effed up in the head do you have to be to see a child asking to be taken to the bathroom in a strange place and effing power play? That's deranged. Call it what it is, abuse. And say it loud to your all family. Your spouse should be proud. Also, congratulations. You are right. This is abuse, neglect. This child either had to go so badly that they just literally couldn't take it anymore and had to humiliate themselves and urinate in front of everyone at a large event. For a female, even a young one, this is much more of an issue, embarrassment, than it is for boys. Or she's been so conditioned that her needs will not be met that she might as well just go here. NTA, but I would seriously consider reporting this family to CPS. I think you witnessed enough neglect, abuse to warrant it. Let the professionals determine if an intervention is needed. NTA. This is basically child abuse and nobody from his family bat an eye? Declining people to go to the toilet within reasonable times is against basic human rights and children cannot hold in for long. He made his daughter so desperate she just had to let it out publicly? And he called it a power play, as if 3-yo are able to do that and mature enough. They still develop empathy and don't really know what their actions do to others. And did not even allow others to take her? And wanted to make his eldest child clean up after her sister? So there is not only ignorance and no care for the child but also forbidding others to care for his child and parentification of his older children and pressing his older children to bear the consequences from his neglect of the younger ones? He did not even parentificated her as in, "You are responsible for your sister. Take her to the bathroom." He forbid others to take her and expected his children to clean up what could have easily avoided. And nobody said anything or sees anything wrong with it and your stepdad and mom are angry at you? Protect those children. AITA for telling my dad and his family that my son's name is none of their business? My wife Bryony, 29F, and I, 30 meters, had our little boy last week. He's our first child. When Bree was pregnant, we had talked about names and she knew I would love to name our child. We did not know the sex, after my mom who died when I was 8 years old. My mom's name works as a unisex name and we both loved a nickname for it, so we decided to go ahead with that as his first name. We did not announce the name until he was born, though we told my maternal grandparents beforehand. My dad and I not all that close. We've had our differences over the years and one of those has come up again. How controlling he is. It was always there but came up after he and his wife Jana had my half-sister. There was a whole argument about me being present for the birth because Jana's kids were going to be. How he saw it as a great bonding moment and important for me to witness. There was also stuff like don't mention mom around Jana or her kids. Don't speak to my maternal family members if Jana or her kids are in the house. Don't skip college and go for an apprenticeship. That's not what our family does. Don't move out at 18 if you're staying in town. He also tried to dictate mine and Bree's wedding. So fast forward to now. My dad brings the whole family over to meet my son, and as soon as they hear the name, it becomes clear they are not happy. My dad and his stepson tell me unless we'd name a future daughter Jana, then my son's name should not be after my mom. Jana tells me how uncomfortable the names makes her. Her daughter, not my half-sister but her daughter from a different relationship, tells me the name takes my son right out of their family and places a wall up. My half-siblings say it's weird for him to be named after someone who isn't part of the family. This is all coming at me and I had to get loud for them to stop. I told them my son's name is none of their business and if they don't like it, they do not need to be part of his life. Cue arguing from everyone and I make them leave. My dad called back the next day alone and told me I was an ass for saying my son's name was none of their business and that they didn't have to be in his life. He said I am doing everything to make them feel like they don't matter and aren't family to me. He demanded I change the name. I told him to go to hell and stay away from us. Tell your dad the next time he squeezes a watermelon out of his dick, he can name it whatever he likes. It's really thoughtful and lovely to pay tribute to your late mom by naming your newborn son in her honor. You could also just happen to like the name, and that's fine too. NTA. Holy hypocrisy, Batman. He spent your entire childhood forcefully erasing your mom and your identity against your wishes. Don't let them do this to your newborn. Because they will try. NTA. If it were me, hell hath no fury if I even hear a sniffle that they've been calling my daughter something other than her name, making any comments about it to her directly or openly scorning her for her given name. I named my son after my late grandfather and late uncle, used their middle names, Edward Reed. Son's father's new girlfriend didn't like Edward, so they started calling him Artie, and signed him up for school as Artie, his last name, without my knowledge or consent even though we had 50-50 at the time. It didn't stop until I threatened the school BC he was being called. Learning to write Artie and not his actual name, talk about an identify crisis. BD ended up taking me back to court for full custody, like clockwork, and the judge ripped him to shreds. JFC, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can check my post history for more info. To be sure I'm clear on this, your father's second wife, her children from her first marriage, your half-siblings and your father are telling you in no uncertain terms that the naming of your baby after your dead mother is a deal-breaker for all of them being in your life? Assuming I'm correct, your last line is perfection. NTA, but your father, his second wife, your step-siblings and half-siblings, all folk who are uncomfortable with you honoring your dead mother by naming your child after her, most assuredly are. Go NC. Stay NC until they come to their senses. And name your next babe after your maternal grandmother or grandfather. Or your favorite actor. Ignore your father's requirements and his new family's. NTA. And also, what the hell? Jana should work on her insecurities. She clearly feels threatened by your dead mom. Also, it's nice that you chose to honor your mom's memory while other family members don't consider her part of the family anymore. Which is sad.